Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast.
Hey.
Today, we're really getting into the weeds on Sagimet Biosciences. The big question, the one everyone seems to be asking is Sagimet Biosciences a good time to buy now? We've spent a lot of time looking at, the charts, the clinical reports, which can get pretty dense, and what the analysts are saying. Our goal here is really to make sense of all these sources for you and help navigate what's clearly a very volatile situation with this company. It's a classic clinical stage biopharma play, right? Value isn't about sales today. It's all tied up in future science, clinical milestones. And hey, before we jump in, if you find this useful, please hit subscribe, give us a like, maybe drop a comment. Seriously, if there's a company you want us to dig into like this, let us know in the comments below. We do read them. Okay, so Sagimet, wow. First thing that just jumps out is the momentum, right?
No, absolutely. It's not just a little bump.
No, it's been, explosive over months, almost 300% up from that low back in early 2025, around $1.73.
That kind of move definitely signals high risk, high reward. You don't get gains like that without some serious volatility baked in.
Right, and that volatility is plain to see. Even recently, closing near, $7.31. But think back to August?
Yeah, those swings were intense. I remember seeing days where it moved more than 13% in one session, jumping between like $10 and over $11.
Exactly, between $10.06 and $11.41, yeah. That tells you this isn't for the faint of heart right now. It's for traders with strong conviction and a stomach for risk.
Definitely.
But looking at the technicals, September looked really quite strong. We saw clear buy signals pop up on moving averages, both short and long term.
That's right. And based purely on that technical structure, you see some analysts forecasting potentially huge returns up to, 192.88% over the next 3 months.
Which sounds amazing, but there's a big if there, right? If conditions hold. How much weight should someone actually put on a number that precise, given how unstable things are?
That's the key question. Those forecasts, they reflect the sentiment based on recent patterns persisting. They aren't crystal balls. What gives it more weight, though, is the structural confirmation. The stock is holding above key moving averages.
Like the 50-day and 200-day?
Exactly. It's currently above the 50-day, which is around $7.52, and importantly, it's well above the 200-day SMA at $5.58. Staying above that 200-day line, that often suggests longer-term money, maybe institutional support, is underpinning the move. It's not just day traders.
Okay, so for someone watching this day-to-day, what are the immediate levels to watch? Where's the floor and ceiling right now?
Good question. Short-term support seems to be forming in the $6.50 to $7 zone. That's your immediate potential floor. On the upside, the resistance to watch is roughly between $8.80 and $9.20, if it breaks convincingly above that.
And maybe it runs towards the old high, the $11.41 mark.
That would be the next logical target for momentum players, yes. A break above $9.20 would likely fuel that kind of move.
It sounds quite bullish technically, almost across the board, but you flagged something. A potential warning sign. A divergence. What's that about?
Yeah, this is where you need to be cautious, especially now in October. Some technical analysis points to a possible divergence between price and volume.
Meaning?
Meaning the price is staying high or even nudging up, but the number of shares actually being traded, the volume is starting to fall off.
Ah, okay, so the conviction isn't quite there.
Potentially. Historically, that can suggest a rally is losing steam, that maybe the broad market isn't fully behind the move anymore. It's a classic yellow flag, a sign the trend could be getting ready to reverse. You need to watch daily volume closely.
Got it. Okay, let's shift from the charts to the core business, the fundamentals. And here we have to face facts. Sagimet is pre-commercial.
Right. Zero product revenue.
And losing money. The trailing 12 months show a net loss of nearly $60 million, minus $59.38 million, EPS around minus $1.84.
That's the reality of clinical stage biotech. The value isn't in today's earnings. It's purely speculative, based on future potential.
True, but even within that, there are positives operationally, right? They seem to be managing costs well.
They do. If you look at Q2 2025, they actually beat the consensus EPS estimates. The loss was $1.32 per share, when analysts expected something more like 51 cents.
Okay, so they spent less than anticipated.
Exactly. And in biotech, showing that kind of operational discipline, that tight control over spending, it's a really positive signal about management's ability to execute. That matters a lot when cash is everything.
Which brings us to the cash runway. Managing losses is one thing, but do they have enough cash to actually get to these crucial trial results without running on fumes? How's the balance sheet look?
It looks pretty resilient, actually.
Yeah.
And that's a major advantage in this sector. Their market cap is around $212 million. But the key thing, no material long-term debt reported. That's huge.
Yeah, debt can be a killer for development stage companies.
Absolutely.
Uh,
So low debt plus that operational control we mentioned means their cash runway is expected to last into 2026.
okay, so that potentially gets them through the upcoming data release without needing to immediately dilute shareholders.
That's the hope. It reduces the immediate pressure for, a painful financing round right before the catalysts hit. That's a big plus.
Now, let's talk about the science, the competitive moat. Their main drug candidate, denifanstat, targets MSH, metabolic dysfunction-associated steatohepatitis. Bit of a mouthful.
It is, formerly known as NASH.
Right. And it's a complex disease, huge unmet need. But Sagimet's approach, this FASN inhibition, why is that considered first in class? What makes it different?
Okay, yeah, this is really the core of their value proposition. It comes down to scarcity, value, and mechanism. MSH is basically severe fatty liver disease that progresses. It can lead to cirrhosis, liver failure. It's serious. Now, a lot of other drugs in development, they target things after the fat has already built up, like the inflammation or the scarring, the fibrosis. Sagimet's approach is different. They target FASN, fatty acid synthase. You can think of FASN as like the main enzyme, the factory inside the liver cells that actually builds new fat molecules from scratch. It's called de novo lipogenesis.
So they're trying to stop the fat production itself at the source.
Exactly. By selectively inhibiting that specific enzyme, denifanstat aims to shut down the fat factory. The theory is, if you stop the creation of new fat, you halt the disease progression right at its root cause.
And nobody else is doing quite that.
Not in a public pure-play company focused solely on this selective FASN inhibition. That gives them a unique angle, a strong potential intellectual property position, if the science works out in phase 3.
And the market potential for MSH is just enormous, right? Billions of dollars, very few treatments approved so far.
Precisely. The unmet need is massive. So if denifanstat hits the market in phase 3, the potential is huge. And we also saw notes that they're exploring this FASN platform for other things too, like acne, even oncology.
Right.
That gives them longer-term options beyond just MASH.
Okay, so that brings us to the catalysts, the volatility generators. For a company like this, it's all about these specific future events, these inflection points, and it looks like the next 1 to 3 months are packed.
They really are. It's why trading is so intense right now. There are several guaranteed events coming up that will likely move the stock.
That's first.
First up is the Q3 2025 earnings release, scheduled for October 30th. Then, around mid-November, we get the institutional 13F filings.
Why are the 13Fs so important here?
Because they show us what the big money, the hedge funds, the mutual funds, the endowments were doing in the previous quarter. Are they loading up ahead of the data, or are they trimming their positions? It gives you a sense of institutional conviction.
Okay. Earnings, 13Fs, what else?
Around December 5th, there's the major biotech ETF rebalancing. This can cause temporary buying or selling pressure as index funds adjust their holdings based purely on the index rules, not company fundamentals. Creates artificial swings sometimes.
Got it. And then the main event, the one everything hinges on.
Yeah, the big one. The expected release of the phase 3 clinical trial data for denifanstat in AVRSH. That's anticipated sometime in Q4 2025.
So before year end, potentially.
That's the timeline everyone's watching. That data release is the moment of truth. It determines if the science holds up or if that whole 300% rally was just, speculation that didn't pan out.
And heading into this massive binary event, the analyst sentiment is, well, it's off the charts. All covering analysts, like 7 or 8 of them, rate it a strong buy.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable conviction. They are clearly betting heavily on that unique FASN mechanism proving effective in the clinic.
Why such confidence right before the biggest risk?
They're likely looking at the combination. The unique science, the low debt, the huge unmet market need. And they're translating that into some really eye-popping price targets. The average 12-month target is up around $26.57.
Wow, that's like 200, 300% upside from where it is now.
Exactly. They are, in effect, pricing in a fairly high probability of positive phase 3 results already.
Which must be fueling the rumor mill too, right? That kind of potential gets people talking.
Oh, definitely. The speculation is constant. Because FASN is first in class, you hear persistent chatter about potential partnerships or licensing deals with Big Pharma.
Because Big Pharma often buys innovation rather than building it?
Precisely. A unique, validated mechanism like FASN would be incredibly valuable strategically. So you hear partnership talk, and you also hear ongoing rumors about potential acquisition interest from larger biotechs wanting to scoop up the whole platform. These rumors add fuel to the volatility fire.
Okay, but let's pump the brakes. Before anyone gets too excited about 300% returns, we have to look at the downside risks squarely. This is a binary bet, you said. What does failure look like in phase 3?
Failure means the drug doesn't meet its primary endpoints. For MEsh, the FDA and investors want to see clear histological improvement, actual measurable changes in liver tissue biopsies.
Like less scarring, or the MASH resolving.
Yes, either a significant reduction in liver fibrosis or the resolution of MAH itself without fibrosis getting worse. If denifanstat misses these specific targets, or if unexpected serious safety problems emerge,
Then the valuation collapses.
it would almost certainly unwind sharply. A lot of that 300% gain could evaporate very quickly because the entire bull case rests on that data.
And what about the financial risk? The cash runway seems okay now into 2026, but what if there are delays? What about dilution?
That's the secondary financial risk. If the data readout slips past Q4 or if partnership talks drag on and they need funding beyond early 2026 without a big non-dilutive deal like a licensing payment,
They'd have to sell more stock.
they'd likely be forced to issue new shares to raise capital. And that dilution, reducing the value of each existing share, would hit right when uncertainty is highest, magnifying the downside for current investors. Regulatory delays with the FDA pathway are another layer of uncertainty, too.
Okay, so pulling it all together, this strong finances for now, the unique science, the technical bug out, but also these huge looming risks. What's the final thesis? How do the sources weigh all this?
The general consensus, looking across the sources, leans towards an overall bullish rating, maybe like a 9 out of 10, heavily weighted by these near-term catalysts. The rationale boils down to that combination. Strong fundamentals, defined mainly by the first-in-class science and the clean balance sheet, clear technical momentum shown by holding above that 200-day average, exceptional analyst agreement, and multiple potentially huge catalysts, the data, M&A potential, all clustered in the next, say, 1 to 3 months.
So potentially interesting for different types of investors, short-term traders playing the events, but also maybe longer-term speculators.
I think that's fair. The packed catalyst calendar makes it very appealing for short-term, event-driven trading, trying to capture that volatility. But simultaneously, the underlying story, the unique FASN approach in a massive market, the M&A potential, makes it a compelling, albeit high-risk, long-term speculative investment as well.
Well, that was a really thorough look at how to approach a company like Sagimet. You should now have a much better handle on analyzing the huge scientific and financial risks involved, but also understanding the potential for those explosive returns. But I do want to leave you with one final question to chew on. Given those very aggressive analyst price targets, like that $26.57 average, how much success from the phase 3 trial is already baked into the current stock price? And if that success is already partially priced in, what does that imply about how far the stock could potentially fall if the data is disappointing? Especially with no current revenue to provide any kind of floor, that gap, between the market's expectation and the possible clinical reality, that's the core tension you always face investing in this space. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this exploration of the source material. We'll see you next time on Investing Talk Podcast.